What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a couple weeks. I know, I'm just fixing this camera a little bit. It's been a couple weeks. Went on a little vacation to Aruba, not to rub it in. It was a great time, first time there. So I wasn't able to make a video that week or the following week, this past week, but we're back now. I'll be back in the actual studio on Thursday this week. Obviously that video won't come out for a little bit, but this one will be out today. It's a little more pressing news. The NBA draft is Thursday. Really snuck up on us. I wasn't necessarily ready for the NHL draft. That happened the day after I got back from my vacation, but we are here now. I will be talking a little hockey and basketball for this episode. So to start off with the Bruins, NHL free agency is starting officially tomorrow. There are deals and trades still being made. You're hearing about the leaks of free agents coming out today, but they won't be official until tomorrow. And that's great. You know, this is a great time of the year. The NHL has their free agency. I know it's not the biggest sport out of the four major ones, but the NHL still has their free agency and trades, and that's always crazy. Players, maybe not necessarily like franchise big name players, but players are very often changing teams in the NHL, more so than I think a lot of people see or hear about. Except that unless you're a Bruins fan, nothing really changes around here, I guess, especially at the top. Hopefully it's a little different this off season, but we got the NHL free agency. The NBA draft is Thursday. The NBA free agency won't be too far behind from that. It's going to be starting up really soon. I don't know the official date, but maybe I can find that at some point. But that's not too far behind. We got the MLB draft. The MLB draft already happened. We got the MLB trade deadline in about 4 days, July 31st. Today's the 27th, so 4 days. We got the MLB trade deadline, and there's always something that could be happening in the NFL. Maybe some disgruntled players trades. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers looks like he's staying put, so that's settled there. But with the Bruins, we have Tuukka Rask as a free agent. He, as of now, there haven't been any movements, nothing crazy happening on his front. He's expected to be out for a lot of the season anyways, so who knows if he plays at all on a team or he signs up until he is actually available during the season. David Krejci, it looks like he is actually returning, which is surprising. There was a lot of rumors and an understanding that he might go back. I forget exactly. He's from Sweden, I believe. He might go back home. Taylor Hall's already signed, and they are in desperate need of a left defenseman. They did not take one in the draft. They took a right winger, which is fine. That's, you can never have enough wing depth, but it would have been nice to have seen a left defenseman. At the same time, it was the 21st pick in the draft, so realistically, a pressing need, the most pressing need on this team, like a left-handed defenseman was that wasn't going to get fixed with the 21st pick unless you got an absolute steal. There's not going to be NHL ready, so. With that being said, moving on to the NBA draft. I got a mock draft. I've tried to take a little bit of a look. It's been tough. It's not like past years. It's not like a couple years ago with Zion and Ja and RJ Barrett. That's just, this draft, it's not, it's, I feel like we say this every year. It's a little more top heavy, but at the same time, there isn't a really consensus. There is a consensus number one pick, in my opinion, but according to a lot of other people, there isn't. So, how much you put into that, I guess that's up to you. But I'm just going to jump right into it. Obviously, the Celtics don't have a pick because they traded it in the deal to send Kemba Walker to OKC. So there won't be any and barring a trade. There's going to be no trades in this. Just like the NFL mock draft I did earlier this year and last year too. There's no trades, no projected trades. There'll probably be trades, probably here and there, maybe not as much as in the NFL draft, but they'll be there. So let's just get it going. So with the first pick, my consensus, I believe he should be the number one pick, Cade Cunningham. So He went to OKC, or he went to Oklahoma State. So he is just. I've watched him play. I've used him in 2K, even though that's not really, it's a fake player, so it's not like that makes a lot of sense. But he seems like an elite talent. He's 6'8", 220 point guard. So I think that says it all right there. He should be an elite playmaker. He's probably going to be a legitimate all-star, and he's going to Detroit, which is unfortunate. I don't want to see him in the East. At least he's not in the division, but there it is. Cade Cunningham, number 1 to the Detroit Pistons. Number 2 to the Houston Rockets. Now, I've been thinking about this one. There's a lot of things that the Rockets could do here. They have some young guys. They have Kenyon Martin Jr. They traded for Kevin Porter Jr., who showed like his scoring potential last year on that team. You have Christian Wood. And so I don't think I would be surprised either way if they go Jalen Green here or Evan Mobley, but it just seems like the most common pick here is Jalen Green, the shooting guard. Evan Mobley's the center, but Jalen Green seems to have the most potential as a scorer in this, or all around like shooting scorer in this draft class, and that's valued a lot now in the NBA. I know centers are too, but you could always have Christian Wood, who's still young but also kind of a veteran, like broke out last year for the Rockets. So you have that guy already kind of there. You could make an argument that Kevin Porter's already there, but Jalen Green, I think he's the guy here. But again, I wouldn't be surprised, because with the next pick to the Cavs, I have Evan Mobley going there. And with them, they already have Darius Garland. They have Colin Sexton. There have been rumors of Colin Sexton potentially getting traded. So a Jalen Green pick there would make a lot more sense. They already have Jared Allen, who they got in trade last year during the season. But Evan Mobley, he's this generation's kind of center. He can shoot, he can play inside, he's at least a 15 and 10 kind of guy at his max potential, maybe even in the right place this year he could be. So I don't know if that's in Cleveland. Maybe you can, if you're the Cavs, you can try to make a deal with sending Kevin Love or Jared Allen away. It's not. I mean, Jared Allen's still pretty young, but it's not like he's a franchise player. So you could always send him away if you think Mobley's ready right away. Those are just some options that they have there. Number 4, I think this is really easy. Toronto Raptors. I'm pretty upset that they moved up this far. They were supposed to be like in the 7 or 8 range, so they're in the division. But I mean, who knows what they're going to look like next year? But Jalen Suggs, point guard, out of Gonzaga. If you haven't heard of him, they went to the national championship. They weren't able to win, but Jalen Suggs. I think this, out of everything besides Cade Cunningham, obviously this makes the most sense, even more so than Cade Cunningham, because the Pistons took Killian Hayes last year. They have like some young players, so I know it's Cade Cunningham, but he, even on that team, he's not the greatest fit for this team. That would be insane if they were able to get him. They won't, obviously, but Jalen Suggs is a nice next point guard in this draft. You're probably losing Kyle Lowry if you're the Raptors, and even if you don't, maybe you bring Kyle Lowry back. You still have the point guard of the future on a relatively young team with OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam still kind of, and you have some of these other guys, so Gary Trent. So I think that just makes a lot of sense. Now with the 5th pick, in my opinion, this was a top 5, top 6 given draft, and it's kind of changed a little bit. Jonathan Kuminga has reportedly just kind of he's kind of fallen a little bit in drafts. He was potentially like a top 3 or 4 at one point, but doesn't seem like he's really going in the top 5 anymore. So right now, this guy moved up because of it. Scotty Barnes going to the Orlando Magic. It makes a lot of sense. He's a pretty similar player to Jonathan Isaac, who's been dealing with torn ACL and some injuries, but he's an amazing defensive player. And if you could put these two next to each other, 6'9" and 6'10", 6'11" for Jonathan Isaac, and they're both Florida State products, so that would be pretty cool for the Magic, I think. And you already have your guards. You have Markelle Fultz, you have Cole Anthony, you have Mo Bamba at center. You got some young guys around there. They're not going to be a good team. They're going to be picking probably even earlier than this. They probably wish they were picking earlier than this right in this draft, but next year they'll probably be in the same, if not a better position. So I think Scotty Barnes makes a lot of sense here for them. So here's where things get interesting. With the 6th pick, I'm thinking For the Thunder, you know, at this point, like it could be Jonathan Kuminga. You know, that's who I'm going with. I've seen James Bouknight. I've seen Davion Mitchell. I just think you can't let Kuminga fall past you here if you're the OKC Thunder. You know, at this point, it's best player available. You're just, especially for the Thunder, because they're all over the place. They got a bunch of young guys. They have a bunch of draft picks. Like, they're just trying to get the best guys they can to probably eventually, if they don't turn into stars themselves, trade all these young assets for stars and be in contention again, once again, like they used to be. So I think Jonathan Kuminga makes sense here for them. With the 7th pick, we have the Warriors. I have Davion Mitchell here. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Warriors. They, you know, their starting lineup is pretty much set. If they don't make any moves, if they stay put and stay how they are, you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and James Wiseman coming back from injury. So you can focus on your bench and 6-man and backups and whatnot and young guys. And Davion Mitchell's a young guy. You can bring him in there, and eventually, whenever Steph Curry decides to hang it up, maybe you have Mitchell around there, and he's already entrenched in that team, and he's a veteran at that point, and it makes a lot of sense for the Warriors. They're in a good spot. But with the 7th, and I believe they have the 14th picks, we'll find out in a little bit. I'm pretty sure that they have the 14th pick. It's just, there's probably going to be trades made, especially with the contracts that they have too. They're probably going after a legit star. So you've heard Bradley Beal, you've heard Ben Simmons, you've heard some other guys. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, eighth pick. Back to the Orlando Magic. I have James Bouknight here. James Bouknight makes a lot of sense. They have a couple point guards. They don't really have shooting guards. Like, they have Terrence Ross. They don't have like a young guy. Like, I guess RJ Hampton they got in a deal, in a trade, but he's more of like a small shooting guard, kind of like lanky point guard, kind of combo guard there. And at this point, you're kind of just trying to see whatever these guys turn into. So I think James Bouknight, you get some good defensive players back to back with Scotty Barnes and James Bouknight if you're the Orlando Magic, which is valuable, especially if you already have Jonathan Isaac there, like I said, and Mo Bamba's blocking shots, and Markelle Fultz is a solid defender and point guard. So you could have a pretty solid defensive team there. Not really a lot of good scorers, but we'll see. So with the 9th pick, I have the Sacramento Kings taking Franz Wagner. It's Franz Wagner, the Moritz Wagner's short-lived Celtics career, his little brother from Michigan. He's been connected to the Kings heavily so far leading up to the draft, and I think it just makes sense for him to go here. If they sound like they want him, they're probably going to take him. So to get a nice wing shooter on that team, that makes a decent amount of sense. You know, they got a couple guards. They got a couple forwards, but not exactly who they probably want there. And their bigs are their bigs. So there isn't really anyone crazy here at this point for bigs. But I guess with the 10th pick, you could have Alperen Sengun go here. Played in Turkey. I have him going here 10 to the Grizzlies. They just traded away. They just traded up the Memphis Grizzlies. This is not a projected trade. This actually happened. They had the 17th pick. But they moved up with the New Orleans Pelicans in a big trade. Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe, along with a future first, are going back to Memphis. And going to New Orleans is the 17th pick and Jonas Valanciunas. So although Memphis did get a center in the deal, you could take a young center at Spurgeon here. It makes some sense. Sounds like they're not keeping Bledsoe, so maybe they could go with a guard here like Moses Moody. But for now, I'm going to go with Alex Spurgeon because it just makes more sense. With the 11th pick, see, this is where it gets tough. This is where it gets really tough because these are just some names at this point. With the 11th pick to Charlotte, I'm going to have them take Moses Moody. It's to me, he's bigger, but he just seems like a similar kind of player to Malik Monk, not just because they're their first and last names, but outside of the size, they seem pretty similar. Malik Monk hasn't been like an elite player for them. He's kind of improved over the last few years for them, last couple of years. But I think getting another guard here like Moses, they have guards. They have some guards on that team. This could honestly, this could switch easily. Like I could easily see Moses Moody going to Memphis and Alex Spurgeon going to the Hornets, because they could honestly probably use a center just as much, if not more, than the Grizzlies. So either way, at 10-11, Moses Moody and Alex Spurgeon. So Sengen, that just makes more sense. 12th pick, San Antonio Spurs. So there's a lot of options here. For me, it's Jalen Johnson out of Duke. He could probably be higher here. He went to Duke. Obviously, he was talented enough to go there, but Duke didn't perform as well, that great this year, and neither did he. But he still has the potential, and you can't have enough forwards, especially if DeMar DeRozan walks, all the more so. You could pair him with like Keldon Johnson and those other guys if you're the Spurs. So I think that just makes a lot of sense. With the 13th pick, Indiana Pacers, Josh Giddey out of Australia. He's a nice ball handling small forward. He has like the size, and they just be adding to their team of players that they already have under contract there at this point. So they make a lot of sense for like trade candidates, but there goes everything. There goes my messages. So they make a lot of sense for everything, but I think that guy as a young player fits in there the most. 14th pick, back to Golden State. So they took Davion Mitchell earlier to put their to figure out their kind of like their point guard situation. In this spot, it was tough because you could go double guard here, you could go with a big, you could go with a forward. For me, I'm going forward for them with Corey Kispert. He's a senior. He's probably the oldest guy, or one of the oldest players in this draft as a senior coming out of college. But for the Warriors trying to compete again at that level, like that just makes the most sense, because Davion Mitchell is a junior. So you're getting a junior and a senior. They're not 18 years old, they're not 19 years old, but they're going to be like NBA ready to like contribute on a team that's going to be a potential contender and playoff team. So I think that just makes a lot of sense for the Warriors, and that's if they stay put, which I don't think they're going to do. I don't know if they have either or both of these picks by the time the draft comes around or during draft night. So there's that to think about as well. With the 15th pick, Washington Wizards, I have them taking another senior. I think this guy is actually the oldest one in the draft, Chris Duarte. I mean, they don't have to. They're not like the Warriors, but they need a shooting guard to replace Bradley Beal. I think they're trying to still be pretty competitive in the East, especially because they did technically make that 8 seed in the playoffs. But either way, if Bradley Beal's gone, you need to replace that production and that position in general. So I think Chris Duarte is the pick here. For OKC, like I said, you're just probably taking the best players at this point. Zaire Williams, he could also go to Washington. Shaking everything on the table here. He could also go to Washington. He's younger. He maybe makes more sense. He's a bigger player. He's 6'8" freshman coming out from Stanford. But OKC just seems to be getting all these young guards, wings, and with all this length and everything. So the best player available, Zaire Williams to OKC. That just makes a lot of sense at 16. That was the Celtics pick. At 17, New Orleans Pelicans, who have moved back, and they're probably looking for some sort of guard here. I think Trey Murphy III makes the most sense out of Virginia. He's a 6'9", kind of smaller size-wise or weight-wise. Shooting guard, small forward combo. Trey Murphy III, he's a junior. He's a nice 3-and-D player. He's ready, obviously, as a junior, probably more for the NBA, and they're trying to compete. They did move back from 10 to 17, but they got the best player in that deal with Memphis and Jonas Valanciunas. So I just think that makes the most sense. They're definitely going guard because their 3, 4, and 5 are all set with Brandon Ingram's, Zion Williamson, and Jonas Valanciunas. So the futures of Josh Hart and Lonzo Ball are in question, even though they're restricted free agents. So these guys, a guard just makes the most sense. Back to OKC from the Miami Heat at pick 18. Best player available, Usman Garuba from Spain. He's a power forward. So they've taken every position here almost. They got a shooting guard, small forward, and a power forward. I know it's like defense positionless in the NBA at this point, but he has a 7'2" wingspan, so that just makes the most sense in my opinion. 19th pick, New York Knicks. So I'm looking at it here, and for me, just based off of need, I think Jaden Springer, the freshman point guard from Tennessee, makes the most sense. They're going to be in the market for a point guard, and they're probably going to get a point guard, whether it's because there's a lot of them. I think Chris Paul is probably staying put in Arizona and Phoenix, but there's the options of Lonzo Ball, or maybe in a sign and trade as he's restricted free agent, or Spencer Dinwiddie, or Dennis Schroeder, or any one of those guys. Like it makes sense. Or maybe someone else I'm not thinking of in a trade. Those are just free agents, but they have money to spend. They have the draft capital to spend, I guess, with this 19th pick. We'll see how it goes. 20th pick. Let's see here. Sorry, one sec. I got lost in my notes all of a sudden. Let me take a look. Trying to get back to my notes real quick. Okay, so 20th pick, Atlanta. See, this is a team that overachieved. They have the guards. They have some other guys like that. I think Kai Jones, with the size, power forward, 6'11", out of Texas, sophomore. I think that makes a lot of sense for them. You never know what's going to happen with John Collins. He's probably going back there, but I think it would be a good idea to have that kind of size in a young player going around there. You already have Kevin Huerter, you have Trae Young, you have Lou Williams is a free agent. I guess a guard could make sense too, but I think for this particular pick, you go with the size. Keon Johnson might work too, but yeah, I kind of have him going back to the next team, the Knicks, just so they can get that another guard thrown in there, another 1 and 2 punch. It makes a lot of sense. Keon Johnson, freshman out of Tennessee. I already had the Knicks picking his teammate Jaden Springer, so to get those two guys with each other, that would be a great influx of young talent from the same school. 22nd pick. Let's see. You have the LA Lakers. For them, I have them taking Jared Butler out of the junior out of Baylor. So the Lakers, again, are another team that's in contention. We're starting to reach those teams that are playoff teams. Obviously, we're in the 20s now, and they're going to be wanting to take players that are more NBA ready and whatnot. So the Lakers need guards. Who knows if they even keep this pick, but it just makes the most sense, in my opinion, to have that guard there. 23rd pick, Houston. Again, best player available right here. It just makes the most sense. And to me, that's probably Sharif Cooper. He's the guy that should be the pick here. They, on top of best player available, they need a guard, like a point guard. Like, they need to start focusing on that position. Obviously, they went with a shooting guard with their first pick, so that just makes more sense. 24th pick, back to Houston. They can go big here now. Isaiah Jackson out of Kentucky. It's a raw player. Obviously, Kentucky wasn't great, but he seems to be their number one option coming out of there as a young player. So I would go with Isaiah Jackson. 25th pick, LA Clippers. Cameron Johnson out of LSU, the freshman shooting guard. That just makes the most sense. They had to trade Lou Will, so you can try to make that replacement there with them. Denver with their 26th pick. I would say here, I'd say Ayo Dosonmu out of Illinois. I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly. He's a junior out of Illinois, another shooting guard. That seems like they're a pretty deep team, Denver, but that seems to make the most sense for them depth-wise. And we would see if these players even make like an impact on any of these teams at this point. Brooklyn Nets, Miles McBride, sophomore out of West Virginia. They're definitely losing Spencer Dinwiddie this offseason to free agency, so that makes the most sense to try to get a replacement there. Philadelphia, I'd say Nashawn Highland, sophomore point guard out of VCU. They need more guards there, need a little influx. I know they took Tyrese Maxey last year, but who knows what ends up happening with Ben Simmons. So that's a big reason to take another guard like that. Phoenix, 29th pick. Let's see. I would say Josh Christopher, another shooting guard out of Arizona State. Stays in the state. Makes a lot of sense for them to try to get it back up there. Devin Booker's, so he doesn't get worked a lot, and you can give some Chris Paul some rest too with another guard in there. And with the 30th pick, the Utah Jazz, I would say Day'Ron Sharpe, get another center in there to back up Rudy Gobert. So that's probably the best option for them. So there you have it. There's the NBA mock draft 1.0 and final product. So thank you all for listening. Tune into the NBA draft and try to see how many I get right. Obviously, the back end of this is pretty drags on, which makes a lot of sense. Just it's like I said, it's more of a top-heavy draft, and even then, it's not as much as past years. So thank you all for watching.